The rain hammered against the pavement like 1,000 tiny fists, each drop exploding into mist that clung to my skin. My lungs burned as I sprinted down the alley behind Romano's, the Italian restaurant where I'd just finished a double shift. The smell of garbage and wet cardboard filled my nostrils, mixing with the lingering scent of garlic and tomato sauce that had soaked into my uniform during 8 grueling hours of carrying plates and forcing smiles. My sneakers slapped against puddles, sending cold water up my bare calves. The thin fabric of my work pants was already soaked through, and my white button-down clung to my body like a second skin. I could hear Marcus behind me, his heavy footsteps, his labored breathing, his voice cutting through the storm. "Emma, stop running from me, baby. We need to talk." Baby, the word made my stomach turn. He'd forfeited the right to call me that when I'd found him in our bed with my former best friend 3 months ago. When I'd discovered he'd been stealing money from my tips jar to fuel his gambling addiction. When he'd shown up at my work tonight, drunk and demanding, his fingers digging into my arm hard enough to leave bruises. I rounded the corner onto 5th Avenue, my heart hammering so hard I thought it might break through my ribcage. The street was alive with Friday night chaos. Couples huddled under umbrellas, taxis splashing through intersections, the blur of headlights reflecting off rain-slicked asphalt. The cold November air cut through my wet clothes, and I was shaking now. Whether from fear or the dropping temperature, I couldn't tell. "Emma, don't you walk away from me!" Closer. He was getting closer. Panic seized my throat. I scanned the street desperately, searching for sanctuary, for anything, a police officer, an open store, a crowd I could disappear into. But the rain had driven most people indoors, and the few pedestrians hurrying past kept their heads down, unwilling to involve themselves in what looked like a lover's quarrel. Then I saw it. A sleek black SUV idling at the curb just ahead, its tinted windows obscuring the interior, exhaust curling into the rain-heavy air. The back door stood slightly ajar, as if someone had just stepped out and forgotten to close it completely. I didn't think. I couldn't afford to think. I yanked the door open and threw myself inside, slamming it shut behind me. The interior was warm, enveloping me like a cocoon. The scent hit me immediately. Leather, expensive cologne, and something darker. Something that made the hair on my arms stand up despite the sudden warmth. Cedar, maybe. Smoke. Power. "Drive," I gasped, my voice cracking. "Please, just drive." The silence that followed was absolute. Slowly my eyes adjusted to the dim interior. The SUV was massive, with seats that felt like butter-soft thrones. Ambient lighting glowed a subtle blue along the edges of the cabin. A privacy partition separated us from the driver, and sitting across from me, perfectly still, was a man who made every cell in my body scream danger. He was young, maybe early 30s, with dark hair that was styled with casual precision, the kind that looked effortless but probably cost more than my monthly rent. His suit was charcoal gray, tailored so perfectly it seemed molded to his body. A watch glinted on his wrist, catching the faint light, definitely not a department store purchase. But it was his eyes that paralyzed me. Dark, almost black in the dim interior, they studied me with an intensity that made me feel like a butterfly pinned to a board. He didn't speak. He simply raised one hand, a small, economical gesture, and the SUV began to move, pulling smoothly into traffic. My breath came in sharp gasps, fogging the air between us. I pressed myself against the door, suddenly aware of how I must look. Soaked, disheveled, my mascara probably running down my cheeks. My uniform stained with marinara sauce from an incident with Table 7. "I'm sorry," I stammered, the words tumbling out. "I'm so sorry, there was a man chasing me, my ex. He wouldn't leave me alone, and I saw your car and Quiet." The single word cut through my rambling like a blade. His voice was low, controlled, with an accent I couldn't quite place. Something European that had been smoothed by years in America. It wasn't loud, but something in its tone made obedience instinctive. I closed my mouth, my heart still racing. Through the tinted windows, I watched the city slide past. We were moving away from my neighborhood, heading uptown toward areas I rarely ventured into, places with doormen and private security, and buildings that gleamed even in the rain. The man across from me hadn't moved. He sat with one ankle crossed over his knee, his posture relaxed in a way that somehow felt more threatening than if he'd been tense. A phone buzzed in his pocket, but he ignored it. His attention remained fixed on me, and I felt like a specimen under a microscope. "What's your name?" he asked finally. "Emma." My voice came out barely above a whisper. "Emma Hartley." He nodded once, as if filing the information away. "And this man who was chasing you, Emma Hartley. Your ex-boyfriend?" "Yes. Marcus. We broke up 3 months ago, but he won't accept it. He keeps showing up at my work, my apartment, everywhere. I've tried talking to him, tried getting a restraining order, but I stopped myself, suddenly aware I was pouring my pathetic life story out to a complete stranger. A stranger whose car I'd literally hijacked. But the police are useless, he finished for me. A ghost of something. Amusement? Contempt? Flickering across his features. Yes. The SUV glided through an intersection, the ride so smooth I barely felt the turns. Outside, the rain continued its assault, but inside this cocoon of leather and warmth, everything felt suspended. Surreal. "You work at Romano's," he said. It wasn't a question. I nodded, surprised. "How did you—" "The smell." He gestured vaguely toward my uniform. "Basil, marinara sauce. And Romano's uses a very specific blend of spices in their sauce. I would recognize it anywhere. The specificity of his observation sent a chill down my spine. Who noticed things like that? "I need to go home," I said, trying to inject some firmness into my voice and failing. "If you could just drop me off at the next subway station, You live at 847 Amsterdam Avenue, apartment 3B. The blood drained from my face. "How do you know where I live?" For the first time, his expression shifted. Not quite a smile, but something close to it. It didn't reach his eyes. "Your uniform." He nodded toward the name tag pinned crookedly to my chest. "Emma. Romano's. 5th Ave location. There are only 3 Emmas who work at that location. 2 are over 50. You are not. Emma Hartley, age 24, moved to New York from a small town in Ohio 2 years ago. Works double shifts 4 days a week. Lives alone in a 1-bedroom walk-up in a building with a broken security door. My hands were shaking now, and not from the cold. Who are you?" "Someone who knows things." He leaned forward slightly, and I caught another wave of that cologne. Intoxicating and terrifying at once. Someone who finds it interesting that a young woman would throw herself into a stranger's vehicle rather than face her ex-boyfriend. "What did he do to you, Emma?" The question was asked gently, but there was steel underneath it. I found myself answering before I could stop myself. "He hit me. Not badly, just—" I caught myself minimizing, a habit I'd developed. "He hit me. When I tried to leave, he said I owed him, that I'd ruined his life, that if he couldn't have me, no one could." Silence filled the space between us. The man's expression hadn't changed, but something in the air shifted. The temperature seemed to drop despite the car's heating system. When he spoke again, his voice was even quieter than before. "I see." The SUV turned onto a tree-lined street that screamed wealth. Brownstones with pristine facades, vintage street lamps casting pools of golden light. The kind of neighborhood where my entire year's salary wouldn't cover a month's rent. "This isn't my neighborhood," I said, fresh panic rising. "Where are we going?" "Somewhere safe." He pressed a button, and the privacy partition lowered slightly. The driver, a massive man with a shaved head and a neck like a tree trunk, glanced in the rearview mirror. "Marco, call Romano's. I want the full schedule for all employees named Emma, then contact Victor. Tell him I need a complete background check on—" He paused, those dark eyes finding mine again. "Marcus what?" "Sullivan," I whispered. "Marcus Sullivan. Everything. Where he works, where he drinks, his debts, his associates. I want it in an hour." "Yes, sir." The driver responded, his voice a deep rumble. The partition slid back up. "Wait," I said, my voice rising. "You can't just— I appreciate the help, but I don't even know who you are. I should go. This is crazy. I shouldn't have jumped in your car, and I'm sorry for that, but— "But you did," he interrupted smoothly. You made a choice, Emma Hartley, a desperate choice perhaps, but a choice nonetheless. And now you're here. He tilted his head slightly, studying me like I was a puzzle he was trying to solve. Do you know what I do for a living? Every instinct I had screamed that I didn't want to know the answer to that question, but I couldn't look away from those eyes. Couldn't do anything but shake my head. I solve problems, he said simply. Problems that the police can't or won't solve. Problems that require a certain approach. And it seems you have a problem, Emma. I don't want anyone hurt, I said quickly. I just want him to leave me alone. Something flickered in his expression. Respect, maybe, or surprise. Noted. The SUV pulled to a stop in front of a brownstone that looked like something from a movie. 4 stories of honey-colored stone. Black iron railings. Windows that gleamed even in the rain. A man in a dark suit stood by the entrance, an umbrella ready. I noticed the bulge under his jacket, and my blood turned to ice. Come, the man beside me said, reaching for the door handle. No. I pressed myself further into the corner, my hand finding the opposite door handle. I'm not going in there. I don't know you. This is insane. He paused, his hand still on the door, and turned to face me fully. In the close confines of the SUV, with the rain drumming on the roof and the city muffled outside, the intensity of his presence was overwhelming. My name is Dante Moretti, he said, and the way he said it suggested I should know the name, should recognize it. When I only stared at him blankly, something like amusement crossed his features again. You really have no idea who I am, do you? I shook my head. Good, he said softly. That's refreshing. He gestured toward the brownstone. I have business to attend to. You are wet, cold, and frightened. Inside, there is warmth, food, and most importantly, safety. Your ex-boyfriend does not know you are here, cannot know you are here. You will have time to think, to breathe, to decide what you want to do next. I am offering you sanctuary, Emma. Nothing more. Why? The question burst out of me. Why would you help me? You don't know me. For a long moment, he didn't answer. Then he said very quietly, because you jumped into my car instead of anyone else's. Because you chose me, even if you didn't know what you were choosing. And because, he paused, and for the first time, I saw something human flicker behind those calculating eyes. I have sisters, and I would hope that if they were in your position, someone would help them. It was the answer I needed to hear, whether it was true or not. Slowly, I released the door handle. Dante's lips curved in something that might have been a smile. He opened his door, and immediately the man with the umbrella was there, shielding him from the rain. Dante turned back, extending his hand to me. Coming? I looked at his hand, strong, elegant, with a silver ring on his right index finger bearing some kind of crest I couldn't make out in the dim light. Everything in my rational brain screamed that this was a mistake, that I was trading one danger for another potentially worse one. But the alternative was going back to my apartment with its broken lock, waiting for Marcus to show up drunk and angry in the middle of the night. I took his hand. His fingers closed around mine, firm and warm, and he helped me out of the SUV. The moment my feet touched the wet pavement, 2 more men materialized from somewhere I hadn't noticed, flanking us as we walked toward the entrance. The man with the umbrella kept pace, ensuring not a single drop touched Dante while I stood there, still soaked to the bone. The front door opened before we reached it, revealing an elegant foyer with marble floors and a chandelier that probably cost more than I'd earn in my lifetime. Sophia, Dante called, his voice echoing in the space. A woman appeared from a doorway to the right, middle-aged, handsome, with salt and pepper hair pulled back in a neat bun. Her eyes widened when she saw me, taking in my bedraggled appearance. Mr. Moretti, she said, her tone professionally neutral despite her obvious surprise. Sophia, this is Emma. She will be staying with us tonight. Please prepare the blue guest room and find her something dry to wear, and food. She hasn't eaten. I ate at work, I protested weakly. Dante's eyes cut to mine. You worked an 8-hour shift at Romano's on a Friday night. You ate scraps in the kitchen between serving tables. That is not eating. The accuracy of his statement rendered me speechless. Sophia moved forward with the kind of efficiency that spoke of years of service. "Of course, sir. Come with me, dear." I followed her toward the sweeping staircase, my wet shoes squeaking on the marble, acutely aware of the puddles I was leaving in my wake. At the base of the stairs, I turned back. Dante stood in the center of the foyer, perfectly composed despite the chaos I'd brought into his evening. He was looking at his phone now, his expression unreadable. As if sensing my gaze, he glanced up. Our eyes met across the elegant space, and something passed between us, a recognition, a question, a promise I didn't yet understand. "Thank you," I said, my voice barely carrying. He nodded once, then returned to his phone, already speaking in rapid Italian to someone on the other end. Sophia touched my elbow gently. "This way, dear." I climbed the stairs, my mind reeling. An hour ago, I'd been carrying plates of fettuccine alfredo to tourists. Now, I was in a brownstone that belonged on the cover of Architectural Digest, being cared for by a woman who called her employer Mr. Moretti, with the kind of deference usually reserved for royalty. And Dante Moretti himself, with his perfect suits and his dangerous eyes and his casual knowledge of my entire life, stood downstairs making phone calls about my abusive ex-boyfriend in Italian. I had jumped into the wrong car to escape Marcus. Or maybe, I thought as Sophia led me down a hallway lined with artwork that looked like it belonged in museums, I had jumped into exactly the right one. Either way, I had a feeling my life would never be the same. The blue guest room wasn't a room. It was a sanctuary. Walls painted in soft dove gray, accented with navy velvet curtains that pooled on the hardwood floor. A bed so large it could sleep 4 people comfortably, dressed in linens that looked like they had never known the inside of a department store. A fireplace, an actual working fireplace, crackled softly in the corner, casting dancing shadows across the ceiling. I stood in the doorway, dripping onto a rug that probably cost more than my car, feeling like an imposter in a museum after hours. "The bathroom is through there," Sophia said, gesturing to a door on the left. "I'll bring you some clothes and towels. Take your time, dear. You're safe here." Safe. The word felt foreign on my tongue. I hadn't felt safe in months. Not since Marcus had started showing up unannounced. Not since I'd started checking over my shoulder every time I walked home from work. Not since I'd begun sleeping with a kitchen knife under my pillow. The bathroom was marble and chrome, with a shower that had more knobs and settings than I could decipher. I turned them at random until hot water cascaded from what felt like 100 different directions. Steam filled the space, and I finally stepped under the spray, still wearing my uniform. I watched the water run pink, then brown, then clear as it washed away the grime of the day, the marinara sauce, the rain, the fear. My hands were shaking again as I peeled off my clothes, dropping them in a soggy heap on the floor. The hot water pounded against my shoulders, my back, my face, and suddenly I was crying, great, heaving sobs that I'd been holding back for hours, days, weeks. The sound echoed off the marble, raw and ugly and real. I cried for the girl I'd been when I'd moved to New York with stars in my eyes and dreams bigger than my small-town upbringing. I cried for the relationship that had turned toxic so slowly I hadn't noticed until I was drowning in it. I cried for the bone-deep exhaustion of working doubles just to make rent, of smiling through harassment from drunk customers, of pretending everything was fine when it was all falling apart. And I cried because I'd just thrown myself into a stranger's car, and that stranger knew where I lived, knew my schedule, knew everything about me while I knew nothing about him, except that his name was Dante Moretti, and he had the kind of power that made grown men call him Sir. Eventually, the tears stopped. The water ran cold. I shut it off and wrapped myself in a towel so plush it felt like being hugged by a cloud. When I emerged from the bathroom, clothes were laid out on the bed, soft gray sweats, a white t-shirt, thick socks, and a cashmere robe in deep burgundy. Everything looked new, tags still attached. I dressed quickly, the fabric soft against my skin, then sat on the edge of the bed, unsure what to do next. A knock at the door made me jump. "Come in," I called, my voice hoarse from crying. Sophia entered carrying a tray that smelled like heaven. Roasted chicken. Vegetables that actually looked like vegetables and not the wilted offerings from my corner bodega. Bread that was still warm, and a glass of red wine. "I wasn't sure what you'd like," she said, setting the tray on the small table by the window. But Mr. Moretti insists his guests eat well. Does he have many guests? I asked before I could stop myself. Something flickered across Sophia's face. Amusement, maybe, or pity. Not like you, dear. She left before I could ask what that meant. I devoured the food, not realizing how hungry I actually was until the first bite hit my tongue. Romano's staff meals were usually whatever mistakes came out of the kitchen. Overcooked pasta, burnt garlic bread, salads swimming in dressing. This was actual food, prepared by someone who understood that eating should be a pleasure, not just fuel. The wine was rich and complex, warming me from the inside out. I savored it slowly, looking out the window at the rain-soaked street below. A car pulled up, another black SUV, and 2 men got out, their movements precise and coordinated. They conferred briefly with the man standing guard at the entrance, then disappeared inside. What kind of person needed this much security? What kind of person had I entrusted my safety to? Another knock, firmer this time. Emma. Dante's voice, muffled through the heavy door. May I come in? My heart rate spiked. I set down the wine glass, suddenly aware of how intimate this was. Me in his house, wearing clothes he'd provided, warm and fed and vulnerable. Yes. He entered, and somehow the spacious room felt smaller with him in it. He'd removed his suit jacket, rolled up his sleeves to reveal forearms roped with lean muscle. His tie was gone, the top 2 buttons of his shirt undone. He looked less polished now, more dangerous, more real. How are you feeling? He asked. Like I'm in a dream, I answered honestly. Or maybe a nightmare. I haven't decided yet. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. Understandable. He moved to the window, looking out at his domain. I have information about Marcus Sullivan. My stomach clenched. That was fast. I told you I solve problems, and to solve them I need to understand them. He turned to face me, his expression unreadable. Your ex-boyfriend has a gambling problem. He owes money to some very unpleasant people. $30,000 to be precise. I felt the blood drain from my face. 30,000? He's been borrowing from loan sharks, betting on sports, always sure the next bet will be the one that pays off. Dante's voice was clinical, detached. It never is. These people he owes, they're not patient. They've given him 2 weeks to pay up or they'll take it out of his skin. I don't have that kind of money, I said quickly. I can barely make rent. I know. He cut me off gently. But Marcus thinks you do, or rather he thinks you can get it. How would I possibly? Your father. The room tilted. What about my father? Dante moved closer, sitting in the chair across from my table, his elbows resting on his knees. Robert Hartley. Died 8 months ago in Cleveland. Left behind a successful construction company, 3 properties, and a life insurance policy. His estate is worth approximately $200,000, all of which goes to his only child. You. I couldn't breathe. How do you know about that? Emma, I know everything about you that matters, and what I don't know, I can find out. He said it matter-of-factly, without arrogance, simply stating a truth. The estate is still in probate. You haven't touched the money because you hate that it exists, hate that it came from a man who left when you were 6 and never looked back. You'd rather work yourself to death at Romano's than accept a penny from him. Tears burned behind my eyes. He was right. And I hated that he knew, hated that this stranger could see into the darkest corners of my life with such clarity. Marcus knows about the inheritance, Dante continued. He's been watching you, waiting for the money to come through. That's why he won't let you go. To him, you're not a person anymore. You're a solution to his problem, a way out of the hole he's dug himself into. So what do I do? My voice cracked. Pay him? Give him everything my father left just to make him go away? No. The single word was absolute, final. You don't negotiate with parasites, Emma. You eliminate them. The way he said it made my blood run cold. I don't want him hurt. I just want him to leave me alone. Dante studied me for a long moment, his dark eyes searching my face. You're kind, he said finally, and it sounded almost like an accusation. Too kind. Even after what he did to you, you still want to protect him. I want to protect myself, I corrected. Getting involved in violence, in whatever it is you're suggesting, that's not protection. That's just trading one nightmare for another. Is it? He leaned back, the firelight catching the planes of his face, making him look like something carved from stone. Tell me, Emma, when Marcus hit you, when he forced his way into your apartment and backed you against the wall, when he told you that you belonged to him, did being kind protect you then? I looked away, shame burning in my chest. The world is not kind to kind people, Dante said, his voice softer now. It devours them, uses them up and spits them out. You've learned that lesson already, or you wouldn't have jumped into a stranger's car tonight. So what are you suggesting? I met his eyes again, something defiant rising in me. That I become cruel? That I let you hurt him on my behalf and pretend my hands are clean? I'm suggesting you let me handle this situation in a way that ensures Marcus Sullivan never bothers you again, without violence, he added, catching my expression. I have other methods. Why? The question burst out of me. Why do you care? You don't know me. I'm nobody. Just a waitress who made a stupid decision to dive into your car. Why are you helping me? Dante was quiet for so long, I thought he wouldn't answer. When he finally spoke, his voice was different. Lower, rougher around the edges. 4 years ago, my youngest sister, Isabella, was dating a man, Luca. He seemed perfect, charming, successful, attentive. By the time we realized what he really was, it was almost too late. He paused, something dark crossing his features. He put her in the hospital. Broken ribs, fractured jaw, internal bleeding. She was 20 years old. My hand went to my mouth. Oh my God. Luca is no longer a problem, Dante said, and the flatness of his tone told me everything I needed to know about Luca's fate. But Isabella, she's never been the same. The physical wounds healed, but the rest? He shook his head. She doesn't trust easily anymore. Doesn't leave the house without security. Sees threats everywhere. I'm sorry, I whispered. So when you jumped into my car tonight, running from a man who has already hurt you, who will hurt you again if given the chance, he leaned forward, his eyes locking onto mine with an intensity that stole my breath. I saw my sister, and I swore that if I could help you, I would. Not for absolution, not to feel better about failing Isabella, but because you deserve better than to live in fear. The raw honesty in his words cracked something open inside me. This man, this dangerous, powerful man who probably had blood on his hands, was offering me something no one else had. Actual help, not just empty sympathy. What would you do? I asked quietly. To Marcus. I would make him understand that you are untouchable, that pursuing you, threatening you, even thinking about you carries consequences he cannot afford. I would ensure the men he owes money to get paid. Not by you, never by you, but in a way that removes you from the equation entirely, and I would make certain that if he ever comes near you again, he'll wish he hadn't. And what would that cost me? A slow smile spread across Dante's face, predatory and beautiful. Finally, the right question. He stood, moving to the fireplace, his profile sharp against the flames. The men I do business with, they trade in debts and favors. Everything has a price. Everything is a transaction. But you, Emma Hartley, he turned back to me. You intrigue me. You jumped into my car not knowing who I was, not caring about anything except escape. You're in my house now, wearing clothes I provided, and you're not trying to seduce me or manipulate me. You're not asking for money or connections or protection beyond this immediate problem. You're just honest. So what's the price? I repeated, my heart hammering. Dinner. I blinked. What? Have dinner with me, tomorrow night. Let me take you somewhere beautiful, somewhere you've never been. Let me know you as more than just a frightened girl running from her past. He moved closer, each step deliberate. If after that dinner you want to walk away, you can. I'll still handle Marcus. I'll still make sure you're safe, but you'll give me one evening. That's my price. It seemed too simple, too easy. But nothing about Dante Moretti was simple or easy. One dinner, I said slowly. And you'll make Marcus leave me alone. Forever, forever, he confirmed. And after dinner, if I want to leave, you'll let me go. No strings, no obligations. You have my word. He extended his hand. Do we have a deal, Emma? I looked at his hand, the same hand that had helped me out of the car, that probably had done terrible things I didn't want to imagine, that was now offering me salvation with a price that seemed impossibly small. I took it. His fingers wrapped around mine, warm and strong, and he pulled me to my feet. We stood there, inches apart, the fire crackling behind us, the rain still pattering against the windows. This close, I could see flecks of gold in his dark eyes, could smell that intoxicating cologne mixed with something uniquely him. Sleep well, Emma, he said softly, releasing my hand. Tomorrow, everything changes. He left, closing the door quietly behind him, and I stood alone in that beautiful blue room, wondering what I'd just agreed to, wondering what tomorrow would bring, wondering if I'd just made a deal with the devil himself, and if so, why part of me didn't care. I didn't sleep well. The bed was too soft, the room too quiet, my mind too loud. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Marcus's face, rage-twisted and desperate, then Dante's face, calm and calculating. Those dark eyes that seemed to see straight through me. I kept reaching for my phone to check the time, then remembering I'd left it in my locker at Romano's, afraid Marcus might use it to track me. At some point near dawn, I finally drifted off, only to wake to sunlight streaming through the gauzy curtains and the smell of fresh coffee. A note had been slipped under my door while I slept. Good morning, Emma. Breakfast is waiting downstairs. There are clothes in the closet. Wear whatever feels comfortable. Our reservation is at 7 p.m. D. The handwriting was precise, elegant, the kind that suggested expensive private schools and etiquette classes I could only imagine. I found the closet, which was more of a small room, and froze. It was full of women's clothing, all in my size, all with tags still attached. Jeans, blouses, dresses ranging from casual to formal, shoes arranged on built-in shelves, a rainbow of options, each piece clearly expensive, clearly chosen with care. How had he known my size? When had he arranged this? I selected the most understated outfit I could find, dark jeans that fit like they'd been made for me, a cream-colored sweater so soft it felt like wearing air, ankle boots that probably cost more than a month's rent. I caught my reflection in the full-length mirror and barely recognized myself. I looked like I belonged in this world of marble floors and crystal chandeliers. I looked like someone Dante Moretti might actually want to have dinner with. Downstairs, I followed the sound of voices to a sun-drenched dining room. Sophia was setting out platters of food, fresh fruit, pastries, eggs, bacon, orange juice that looked freshly squeezed. At the head of the table sat Dante, wearing dark slacks and a black sweater, reading something on his tablet, a cup of espresso at his elbow. He looked up when I entered, and something shifted in his expression. Good morning. You slept well? Not really, I admitted, sliding into the chair Sophia pulled out for me. Honest as always. He set down the tablet. Coffee? Tea? Coffee, please. Black. Sophia poured, the rich aroma making my mouth water. I wrapped my hands around the delicate china cup, grateful for something to do with my nervous energy. I've taken care of Marcus, Dante said, as casually as if he were discussing the weather. My cup froze halfway to my lips. What? How? It's only been 12 hours, 14 technically, but who's counting? He took a sip of his espresso. This morning, Marcus Sullivan received a visit from representatives of the gentleman he owes money to. They informed him that his debt has been paid in full by an anonymous benefactor, with interest. They also informed him that this benefactor has taken a personal interest in your well-being, and that any further contact with you would be considered a grave insult. One they would be forced to address. I set down my cup before I dropped it. You paid his debt? $30,000 just like that? 32, with interest? And yes, just like that, Dante's eyes met mine. Money is simply a tool, Emma. I have more than I could spend in several lifetimes. Why not use it to solve problems? But Marcus, he'll think he won. He'll think he scared me into paying. He'll think whatever he wants, as long as he stays away from you. Dante leaned back in his chair. The men I sent made it very clear that the money came from someone else. Someone with reach. Someone who would know if Marcus so much as looked in your direction. And to ensure complete understanding, they showed him photographs. Photographs! My voice came out weak. Of you. Getting into my car last night, walking into this house, having breakfast with me this morning. He gestured to someone I hadn't noticed. A man standing in the doorway with a camera. Marcus now knows you have protection. Powerful protection. That knowledge alone will keep him away better than any restraining order ever could. I should have been horrified. Should have been angry that someone had photographed me without permission. That my life was being manipulated like chess pieces on a board. But instead, all I felt was a dizzying sense of relief. For the first time in months, I could breathe without looking over my shoulder. Thank you, I whispered. Dante waved a dismissive hand. Eat, you're still too thin. I did, forcing food past the knot in my stomach. The pastries melted on my tongue. The fruit was perfectly ripe. The eggs were better than anything I'd ever made for myself in my cramped kitchen. Sophia kept my coffee cup full, hovering like a protective mother hen. What about work? I asked suddenly. I have a shift this afternoon. I called Romano's this morning, told them you had a family emergency and would be out for the weekend. I set down my fork. You can't just reorganize my entire life. I'm not reorganizing. I'm simplifying. He wiped his mouth with a napkin. You work too much for too little money, and your manager is a man who waters down the wine and skims from employee tips. You deserve better. How do you know about the tips? Because I own Romano's, Dante said simply. Well, technically, I own the building, and the 4 buildings around it, and I've been aware of Giuseppe's creative accounting for months now. He'll be replaced by Monday. My head was spinning. You own, but I've been working there for over a year. I've never seen you. I have many investments, Emma. I can't personally oversee them all, but when something catches my attention... His eyes locked on mine. I pay very close attention. The implication hung in the air between us. I'd caught his attention. Somehow I'd become something he was paying very close attention to. Our reservation is at 7 p.m., he continued, changing the subject smoothly. We'll leave at 6:30. The drive takes 20 minutes. Where are we going? A mysterious smile played at his lips. Somewhere you'll never forget. The day passed in a strange fog. Sophia showed me around the brownstone. 5 floors of understated luxury, each room more beautiful than the last. A library with floor-to-ceiling shelves and a rolling ladder. A music room with a grand piano that gleamed like black glass. A gym in the basement that looked like something from a magazine. And everywhere, men in dark suits, positioned strategically, always watching. Mr. Moretti takes his security seriously, Sophia said, when she caught me staring at one of the guards. Why does he need so much security? She gave me a look that said I was being deliberately naive. Mr. Moretti is a very important man. Important men have enemies. What kind of important? But Sophia just smiled and changed the subject. At 5 p.m., she ushered me back to the blue room where 3 dresses had been laid out on the bed. One black and elegant, one deep red and daring, one midnight blue that shimmered when it caught the light. Mr. Moretti thought you might like options, Sophia said, though personally, I think the blue would be stunning on you. I chose the blue, unable to resist the way the fabric felt against my skin, cool and fluid, like wearing water. It had a high neckline and long sleeves, but the back dipped low, exposing skin I usually kept covered. The hem fell to mid-thigh, shorter than I normally wore, but not indecent. Sophia helped with my hair, pinning it up in a way that looked effortlessly elegant, with soft tendrils framing my face. Makeup followed, subtle but transformative. I stared at my reflection and saw a woman I didn't recognize. Sophisticated, beautiful, confident. A stranger. At precisely 6:30, there was a knock at my door. I opened it to find Dante in a black suit that probably cost more than my car. A crisp white shirt, no tie. He looked devastating, and from the way his eyes widened fractionally when he saw me, I knew the feeling was mutual. You look... He paused, seeming to search for the right word. Breathtaking. Heat crept up my neck. Thank you. You clean up pretty well yourself. His lips curved. Shall we? He offered his arm, and after a moment's hesitation, I took it. We descended the stairs together, Sophia watching from the landing with an expression I couldn't read. In the foyer, Marco waited with another man I didn't recognize, both wearing earpieces and expressions of professional alertness. Marco will drive, Dante said. Alessandro will follow in the second vehicle. You need 2 cars for a dinner date? I need to ensure you're safe. That requires preparation. The way he said it, you're safe, not we're safe, made something flutter in my chest. The SUV was already running, warm despite the cold November night. Dante handed me in, then slid beside me with the kind of grace that spoke of years of practice. As we pulled away from the brownstone, I watched the second SUV fall into position behind us. You never told me what you do, I said, as we glided through traffic. What kind of business requires this much security? Dante was quiet for a long moment, his profile sharp against the passing lights of the city. Import-export, primarily. Shipping, real estate, investments. My family has been in business for 4 generations. That's a very diplomatic answer that tells me absolutely nothing. He turned to look at me, amusement dancing in his dark eyes. What do you want me to say, Emma? That I'm a dangerous man? That I operate in the shadows where laws are suggestions rather than rules? That the people who work for me would kill for me, and have? My breath caught. Is that true? Would it change anything if it were? He reached across the space between us, his fingers grazing my jaw, tilting my face toward him. You're here, in my car, wearing a dress I bought you, going to dinner at a restaurant where I'm known. You made your choice last night when you threw open that door and climbed inside. The question is, can you live with that choice? I should have been terrified. Should have demanded he turn the car around, should have run screaming back to my ordinary life with my ordinary problems. But as I sat there, his fingers warm against my skin, his eyes seeing everything I tried to hide, I realized something that should have scared me more than anything else. I didn't want to run. I can live with it, I whispered. His smile was slow, satisfied, predatory. Good. The restaurant was called Cielo, tucked away on a street I'd never heard of, behind an unmarked door that looked like it led to a warehouse. But when Dante helped me out of the SUV and guided me inside, I stepped into another world entirely. The entire space was enclosed in glass, offering a 360-degree view of the Manhattan skyline. Chandeliers hung like frozen fireworks from the ceiling. Each table was an island of candlelight and intimacy. Mr. Moretti, the maitre d' greeted us, his face transforming with genuine warmth. Your table is ready. We were led to a private alcove overlooking Central Park, the city spread out below us like a jeweled tapestry. Dante pulled out my chair himself, his hand lingering on my shoulder for just a moment before he took his own seat. This is incredible, I breathed, unable to look away from the view. I thought you'd appreciate it. He signaled a waiter, who appeared instantly with champagne. To new beginnings. We clinked glasses, and I took a sip, the bubbles dancing on my tongue. The champagne was perfect, the view was perfect, the man across from me was perfect in a dangerous, unsettling way. Tell me about yourself, Dante said, leaning back in his chair. The real you, not the facts in a background check. What do you want to know? Everything. So I told him. About growing up in a small Ohio town where everyone knew everyone's business. About my mother working 3 jobs after my father left, dying of exhaustion disguised as a heart attack when I was 19. About coming to New York with dreams of being a writer, only to discover that dreams didn't pay rent. About Marcus, who'd seemed charming at first, then controlling, then dangerous. About feeling invisible in a city of millions, like I was screaming and no one could hear. Dante listened to every word, his attention absolute, and when I finally fell silent, embarrassed by how much I'd revealed, he reached across the table and took my hand. You're not invisible anymore, Emma, he said quietly. I see you. And God help me. I believed him. The dinner stretched into hours, course after exquisite course, appearing like magic. We talked about everything and nothing. His childhood in Sicily before his family moved to New York, my failed attempts at writing a novel, his love of opera, my secret addiction to terrible reality TV. He made me laugh, something I hadn't done genuinely in months. And when I laughed, something in his severe features softened, became almost boyish. But beneath the champagne and conversation, I felt the current running between us, the way his eyes tracked my movements. The brush of his fingers when he refilled my wine glass, the weight of unspoken words hanging in the air like the chandeliers above us. As dessert arrived, some confection involving chocolate and gold leaf that seemed too beautiful to eat, Dante's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, and his entire demeanor changed. The warmth drained from his expression, replaced by something cold and hard. "Excuse me," he said, standing abruptly. "I need to take this." He moved to the corner of the alcove, his voice dropping to a rapid-fire stream of Italian. I caught words here and there: traditore, traitor, sangue, blood, adesso, now. His free hand clenched into a fist, the knuckles white. When he returned to the table, the charming dinner companion was gone. In his place sat the man who'd casually mentioned that people had killed for him. "We need to leave," he said, his tone leaving no room for argument. "What's wrong?" "Nothing that concerns you, but I need to handle it now." He was already signaling for Marco, who appeared at the entrance to our alcove within seconds. "Take Emma back to the house, post guards on her room. No one in or out without my explicit permission." Fear spiked through me. "Dante? What's happening?" He looked at me then, really looked at me, and something in his eyes made my blood run cold. Someone betrayed me, someone close, and they're going to pay for that mistake. He leaned down, his lips brushing my ear. "Stay at the house. Stay safe. I'll come to you when this is finished. However long it takes." He straightened, already moving toward the exit. "Marco." "Yes, sir." "Nothing happens to her. Understood?" "Understood." And then he was gone, leaving me sitting alone at a table set for two, the city glittering indifferently below. The drive back to the brownstone was silent. Marco's eyes kept flicking to the rearview mirror, watching the second SUV, watching the streets, watching everything. I wanted to ask questions, wanted to demand answers, but something about the set of his jaw told me I wouldn't get them. At the house, 2 additional men I hadn't seen before flanked the entrance. Marco escorted me inside personally, his hand resting on something beneath his jacket. Sophia met us in the foyer, her face tight with worry. "Mr. Moretti called," she said. "I'm to make sure you have everything you need." "What's going on?" I asked. "Please, just tell me what's happening." Sophia exchanged a look with Marco, some silent communication passing between them. Finally, she sighed. "There's been an incident. A shipment was intercepted. Someone on the inside provided information to..." She paused, choosing her words carefully. "Competitors." "You mean rival gangs?" I said flatly. Her silence was answer enough. "And Dante's gone to handle it." "Mr. Moretti is handling it, yes." "Is he in danger?" Something that might have been sympathy crossed Sophia's face. "Mr. Moretti is always in danger, dear. That's the world he lives in, the world he was born into, but he's also very good at surviving." She led me back to the blue room, where I paced like a caged animal. Outside, I could hear footsteps, guards repositioning, phones buzzing with updates I couldn't hear. The clock on the mantel ticked away the minutes. 9 p.m., 10, 11. At midnight, I heard raised voices downstairs. Men shouting in Italian, the sound of heavy footsteps, then silence. Then more voices, calmer now, discussing something in tones too low to make out. I opened my door to find one of the guards posted directly outside. "I need to see what's happening," I said. He shook his head. "Mr. Moretti's orders. You stay in your room." "I'm not a prisoner." "You're not. You're being protected. There's a difference." His hand moved to his weapon, not threatening, just present. "Please, miss, go back inside." I did, slamming the door behind me, anger and fear warring in my chest. What had I gotten myself into? 24 hours ago, I'd been a nobody waitress with a stalker ex-boyfriend. Now I was locked in a room in a brownstone, while the man who'd paid off my ex's debts was out there doing God knows what to God knows who. The reality of Dante Moretti was crashing down on me. He wasn't just a wealthy businessman with security. He was something else entirely, something dangerous, something that operated outside the law, outside morality, outside everything I'd been raised to believe was right. And I'd agreed to have dinner with him, had let him pay off Marcus, had worn his clothes and eaten his food, and let myself feel safe in his presence, had let myself start to feel something more than gratitude. At 2 a.m. I heard a car pull up. More voices, urgent and sharp, then heavy footsteps on the stairs coming closer. A soft knock on my door. "Emma." Dante's voice, rough and tired. "Are you awake?" I threw open the door. He stood in the hallway, still in his suit, but it was rumpled now, the shirt stained with something dark near the collar. Blood. His jaw was tight, his eyes harder than I'd ever seen them. "Are you hurt?" I demanded. "No, that's blood. Not mine." He stepped into the room, and I saw the guards retreat down the hallway, giving us privacy. "The situation has been handled." I crossed my arms. "What does that mean exactly?" "It means the traitor has been dealt with. The stolen shipment has been recovered. My business partners understand that betraying me carries consequences." He moved to the window, looking out at the dark street. "It means you're safe. That's all you need to know." "No." The word came out sharper than I intended. "No, that's not all I need to know. You left dinner to go do something that involved blood and violence and God knows what else. You have men with guns surrounding this house. You talk about shipments and competitors and consequences like you're discussing the weather. I deserve to know what I'm dealing with." He turned to face me, and the look in his eyes made me step back. "You want to know? Fine, I'll tell you." He advanced, and I retreated until my back hit the wall. My family controls shipping routes from Europe to the East Coast. We move cargo that other people want to intercept. Legitimate cargo, mostly, but some things that fall into gray areas, things that make us targets for people who don't respect the old rules, the old ways. He planted his hands on either side of my head, caging me in. Tonight, one of my captains sold information to the Russians. They hit one of our warehouses, took merchandise worth $3 million. They thought we were weak, that we'd negotiate, that we'd let it slide. "And you didn't," I whispered. "I don't negotiate with thieves and traitors, Emma. I make examples of them, so the captain who betrayed me, he's gone. The Russians who took what's mine, they've been sent a message they won't forget. And the merchandise has been returned, along with interest." His face was inches from mine now. "That's who I am. That's what I do. If you can't handle that reality, tell me now, and I'll have Marco drive you anywhere you want to go. No hard feelings, no obligations." My heart was hammering so hard I could feel it in my throat. I should have been horrified, should have demanded to leave immediately, should have run as far and as fast as I could from this man and his world of violence and blood, but I didn't. "I'm not going anywhere," I said, my voice steady, despite the fear coursing through me. Something shifted in his expression. Surprise, maybe, or satisfaction. Why? Because for the first time in my life, someone sees me as worth protecting, worth avenging, worth... I stopped, the words catching in my throat. Worth what? His voice was barely above a whisper. "Worth everything," I finished. The distance between us evaporated. His lips crashed against mine, and I tasted wine and danger and something darker. My hands fisted in his shirt, the one stained with someone else's blood, and pulled him closer. He groaned against my mouth, one hand sliding into my hair, the other gripping my waist hard enough to bruise. This wasn't the gentle kiss of a first date. This was possession, claiming. A declaration of ownership that should have terrified me but instead set my blood on fire. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, he rested his forehead against mine. "You're playing with fire, Emma Hartley. Maybe I want to get burned." He pulled back just enough to look into my eyes. "I can't offer you normal. I can't offer you safe. My world. It's violence and paranoia and enemies around every corner. If you stay with me, you'll always be a target. always be looking over your shoulder, always wondering if the next phone call will be the one telling you I'm not coming home, and if I leave? His jaw clenched. Then I'll let you go. I'll make sure you're protected from afar, that Marcus never bothers you again, that you can live whatever life you choose. But I won't contact you, won't insert myself into your world. You'll be free, free. The word should have sounded appealing. Instead, it sounded like a prison sentence. What if I don't want to be free? I asked. What if I want this? Want you? Even knowing what you are, what you do? Then you're either incredibly brave or incredibly foolish. But he smiled when he said it, and the expression transformed his severe features into something almost beautiful. Probably both. Definitely both, I agreed. He kissed me again, softer this time, almost reverent. When he pulled back, he brushed a strand of hair from my face with surprising gentleness. Sleep, he said. Tomorrow, we talk about what this means, what happens next. But tonight, you need rest. Where will you be? Handling the aftermath, making calls, ensuring this doesn't happen again. He moved toward the door, then paused. Emma? Yes. Thank you. For what? For not running. He looked back at me, and in that moment, I saw past the dangerous mobster to the man underneath, the one who'd lost his sister to violence, the one who carried the weight of an empire on his shoulders, the one who'd just given me an out and seemed relieved I hadn't taken it. For choosing to stay, then he was gone, the door closing softly behind him. I stood alone in the blue room, my lips still tingling from his kiss, my mind reeling from everything that had happened. Outside, I could hear the guards resuming their positions, the house settling into watchful silence. I'd jumped into the wrong car to escape one dangerous man and found myself falling for someone infinitely more dangerous. But as I climbed into bed, still wearing the blue dress that had somehow survived the evening, I realized I didn't regret it. Not the jump into the car, not the dinner, not the kiss that had sealed whatever fate I'd chosen. For the first time in years, I felt alive, terrified, and alive, and chosen. And that was worth more than all the safety in the world. Block 5. Morning came too soon, sunlight streaming through the curtains like an interrogation lamp. I woke still wearing the blue dress, now hopelessly wrinkled, my makeup smeared across the silk pillowcase. For a moment, I lay there wondering if last night had been a dream. The blood on Dante's shirt, the kiss that had burned through every rational thought, the choice I'd made to stay in this dangerous world. Then, I heard voices downstairs, sharp and urgent, and knew it had all been terrifyingly real. I showered quickly, washing away the remnants of last night, and dressed in jeans and a sweater from the magical closet. When I emerged, Sophia was waiting in the hallway, her expression grave. Mr. Moretti would like to see you in his study, she said. He's been up all night. The study was on the 3rd floor, a room I hadn't seen during yesterday's tour. Dark wood paneling, floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, a massive desk that looked like it had witnessed decades of decisions. Dante stood by the window, phone pressed to his ear, speaking in rapid Italian. He looked exhausted, shadows under his eyes, his shirt from last night now stained and rumpled, jaw dark with stubble. But when he saw me, something in his expression softened. He finished his call and set the phone down. Emma, good morning. Is it? I gestured at his appearance. You look like you haven't slept. I haven't. There was much to handle. He moved to a sidebar and poured 2 cups of coffee from a silver carafe. Cream, sugar. Black, remember? A ghost of a smile. I remember everything about you. He handed me the cup, our fingers brushing. Even that simple touch sent electricity through me. We stood there, close enough to kiss again, the morning light painting him in shades of gold and shadow. We need to talk, he said finally. About what happens now. I'm listening. He gestured to a leather sofa near the fireplace, and we sat, the space between us somehow both too much and not enough. Last night changed things, not just the attack on my warehouse. That's business, it will be handled. But you, us, he set down his coffee cup. I told you that you could walk away. That offer still stands. But if you choose to stay, you need to understand what that means. Tell me. It means you become part of my world, completely. You'll live here, under my protection. You'll have guards wherever you go. Your movements will be monitored, not to control you, but to keep you safe. My enemies will see you as leverage, a way to hurt me. There will be threats, attempts, danger that most people never have to think about. I absorbed this, the reality of what he was describing. And in return, you'll want for nothing. Money, comfort, security. Anything you desire, I'll provide. You'll never work another double shift at Romano's. Never worry about rent or bills or making ends meet. He paused. And you'll have me. All of me. My protection, my resources, my loyalty, my heart, if you want it. My breath caught. Your heart. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees, his eyes locked on mine with devastating intensity. I don't do things halfway, Emma. When I commit to something, I'm all in, and last night, when I kissed you, when you kissed me back, I made a decision. You're mine now. Mine to protect. Mine to care for. Mine to... He stopped, jaw clenching. Mine. The possessiveness in his voice should have set off alarm bells, should have reminded me of Marcus and his claims of ownership, his demands for control, but this was different. Dante wasn't trying to diminish me. He was offering to elevate me, to pull me into his orbit and hold me there, safe and cherished and seen. And if I want something else? I asked quietly. If I want to keep working, to maintain some independence, to have a life outside of being yours? His expression darkened. Then we'll have a problem, because I can't protect you if you're wandering around the city alone, serving tables to strangers, putting yourself at risk. My enemies don't play fair, Emma. They'll use any weakness, any opening. And you, his hand cupped my face, thumb stroking my cheek. You would be my greatest weakness, so I'd be a prisoner, a beautiful, well-cared-for prisoner. No. The word was fierce. A prisoner has no choice. You have a choice. Stay and accept the life I'm offering, the protection, the luxury, the devotion. Or leave, and I'll ensure you're safe from afar, but we'll never see each other again. Choose, Emma. I stood, moving to the window, looking out at the tree-lined street below. A black SUV sat at the curb, 2 men visible inside. Always watching, always ready. Was this the life I wanted? To be constantly guarded? Constantly aware of threats I'd never had to think about before? But then, I thought about my old life, the cramped apartment with its broken lock, the exhaustion that lived in my bones from working endless shifts, the loneliness of being invisible in a city of millions, the terror of knowing Marcus could show up at any moment, angry and drunk and dangerous. Dante was offering me an escape from all of that. A life I'd never dared to dream of. And yes, it came with its own dangers, its own constraints, but at least they were golden chains, worn willingly, held by someone who'd proven, in just 2 days, that he would move heaven and earth to keep me safe. I want to finish my novel, I said, still looking out the window. Silence behind me. Then, what? I turned to face him. If I'm going to stay, if I'm going to be yours, I need something that's mine. A purpose beyond being protected. I want to write. I want to finish the novel I started 3 years ago and gave up on because I was too exhausted to think straight. I want a room in this massive house where I can work, where I can create something that matters. Dante stood, crossing to me in 3 long strides. Done. You can have any room you want. I'll have it set up with whatever you need. Desk, computer, books, anything, the entire 4th floor if you want it. And I want to visit my mother's grave, once a month, in Ohio. Alone, or just with a driver. Not with an army. His jaw tightened, but he nodded. Marco will drive you. He's discreet. And I want you to be honest with me, about your business, about the dangers, about what's happening. I don't need all the details, but I won't be kept in the dark like a child. That one's harder, he admitted. There are things you're better off not knowing, things that could put you in danger just by knowing them. Then we'll draw lines together, figure out what I need to know versus what I'm better off not knowing. But no lies, Dante. If you lie to me, We're done. He reached for me, pulling me close, his arms wrapping around me like he was afraid I'd disappear. No lies, he promised against my hair. I swear it. We stood there, holding each other, and I felt something settle in my chest. A decision made. A path chosen. For better or worse, I was stepping into Dante Moretti's world. There's one more thing, he said, pulling back to look at me. Your inheritance. The money from your father's estate. I stiffened. What about it? It's yours. Completely yours. I want you to keep it, invest it, use it however you want. But I don't want you touching it to pay for anything related to us. Your safety, your comfort, your needs, those are mine to provide for. That money is your independence, your escape hatch, if you ever need it. Tears burned my eyes. You're giving me a way out. I'm giving you a choice, always. He kissed my forehead. I want you to stay because you choose to, not because you have no other option. Your father's money gives you that option. The gesture broke something open inside me. This man, this dangerous, violent, powerful man, was ensuring I always had the means to leave him, was protecting my independence even as he asked me to surrender parts of it. I love you, I blurted out, the words escaping before I could stop them. Dante froze, his eyes widening. What? I know it's too soon. I know it's crazy. We've known each other for 2 days. But I laughed, a slightly hysterical sound. I jumped into your car to escape one danger and found something so much more dangerous, and I don't care. I love you. He kissed me then, deep and thorough, pouring everything he couldn't say into the press of lips and tongue. When he finally pulled back, his voice was rough. Ti amo, Emma Hartley. I've loved you since you climbed into my car, soaking wet and terrified and brave enough to demand I drive without even knowing who I was. That was 2 days ago, and I've loved you for every second since. He rested his forehead against mine. You're mine, Tesoro, and I'm yours. Whatever that means, however this unfolds, we're in this together. The rest of the day was a whirlwind. Sophia showed me the 4th floor, a massive space with windows overlooking the city, currently empty except for storage boxes. By evening, a team had transformed it into a writer's paradise, a desk positioned to catch the afternoon light, a ergonomic chair, a new laptop with all the latest software, bookshelves ready to be filled, a comfortable reading nook by the window. How did you do this so fast? I asked Dante, who'd appeared to inspect the work. Money and motivation, he said simply. I wanted you to have your space, your sanctuary. That night, we had dinner in his private dining room, just the 2 of us. No guards hovering, no business calls interrupting. We talked about everything. My novel, a thriller about a woman who witnesses a crime. His love of opera, Puccini was his favorite. Our shared addiction to terrible action movies. I need to go to Sicily next week, he said over dessert. Family business. I'd like you to come with me. To meet your family. Panic fluttered in my chest. They already know about you. My mother called this morning, demanding details. He smiled wryly. Isabella wants to meet the woman who jumped into my car. Says anyone that bold deserves respect. What did you tell them about me? The truth. That you're brave and honest and you make me want to be better than I am. He reached across the table, taking my hand. That I'm keeping you. Over the following weeks, I settled into my new life. I wrote in the mornings, the words flowing easier than they had in years. Sophia became a friend, teaching me Italian and sharing stories about Dante as a serious child who'd taken on too much responsibility too young. Marco drove me to Ohio once a month, standing respectfully distant while I talked to my mother's gravestone. And Dante was everything. Protective to the point of obsession, yes, but never controlling. He encouraged my writing, read early chapters, and gave thoughtful feedback, celebrated when I finally finished the manuscript. He took me to the opera, to restaurants I'd only dreamed of, to his villa in Sicily where his family embraced me with warmth and curiosity. His mother pulled me aside during that trip, her English accented but clear. My son, he has always been serious, always carrying weight, but with you, I see him smile, really smile. Thank you for that. Marcus disappeared from my life completely, though I later learned he'd moved to Nevada, got a job in construction, married a woman who kept him on the straight and narrow. The threat he'd represented felt like a lifetime ago. 6 months after I'd jumped into that car, Dante took me back to the spot where it had happened. Rain was falling again, the streets slick and gleaming. "Do you regret it?" he asked, both of us standing under Marco's umbrella. "That night? The choice you made?" I looked up at him. This man who'd saved me and claimed me and loved me with an intensity that still took my breath away. Not for a second. He pulled a small box from his pocket. Inside was a ring, a sapphire the color of the dress I'd worn on our first date, surrounded by diamonds that caught the streetlight. "Marry me," he said, not a question. A statement, a certainty. "Yes," I answered, just as certain. He slid the ring onto my finger, then kissed me there in the rain, in the spot where our story had begun with fear and desperation, and a car door left carelessly open. I jumped into the wrong car to escape my ex, and found the man I was always meant to find, my captor, my protector, my obsession, my home. The rain continued to fall, washing away the last traces of the woman I'd been, leaving only the woman I'd become. Emma Moretti, beloved, protected, chosen, his, and he was mine.